Hello, everyone. Welcome to RAVENSTA'S Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. Want to give a shout out to everybody here at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. We are 100% listener support, so if you like what you're hearing, click the donate button. We appreciate your support and thank you for any contribution you can make this excellent station here at Revolution.radio. Don't forget that we have the archives here for free until September, so that's a very good deal for you guys. You can access the archives by going into the archive section and going into the user, which would be Rev Radio, and then the password, of course, is rocks! So go ahead and take advantage of the free archives while you can, and I think that would be a good idea. Also, my most recent book, Alien Intelligence, is available on Amazon on Kindle, so pick up your copy today if you've not already. Everybody's really big on the aliens and extraterrestrials and artificial intelligence. I don't know where you guys have been for the past 15 years, but I've been the test pilot for the covert warfare program with the artificial intelligence interface and synthetic telepathy. So when I hear you guys talking about it on your shows, I have to kind of chuckle because you really should be talking to me. I'm the one who got through the program and knows it from A to Z. So just a heads up there, just bottom line. Okay. So anyways, you might want to read my books. It might enlighten you to figure out it's more than what you think. Anyways, all right. And what else do I have going on here? I have a wonderful guest for you all this evening, so I'm going to get busy and give you his introduction here. I have Jeff Woolwine here tonight, and Jeff Woolwine is one of the premier videographers, skywatcher, and UFO hunter in the United States. He was the first person to prove that the Honokam Indians carved UFO sightings hundreds of years ago on the mountains around the valley of Phoenix, Arizona. His videos of research have captivated the UFO world and changed the way to understand UFOs through the rock art and his UFO sightings and investigations. Jeff has written a book on the subject and is available now on what the Phoenix Lights really are according to the Petroglyphs and the lost history of Phoenix, Arizona. Over 20 years of research and hiking the mountains around the valley of Phoenix, Arizona, and filming UFOs in the valley skies. He has possible explanations and theories on what UFOs are and has included that in his book, which is fabulous. And Jeff has been in a number of cable shows, radio shows, and was premiered in the pilot for the UFO Hunters show. Then later, excuse me, I knew I was going to lose my voice. As it aired on the History Channel, Jeff has been watching UFOs for 20 years now. And in the beginning of his research, UFO Hunters thought it was nothing more than a theory to the UFO world. But as his work evolved and UFO researchers continue to study his work on UFOs with the Petroglyphs connections, they have now come to understand that his theories are now facts throughout the years. Jeff was the first person to discover that not all UFOs are crafts but living entities. Now, today, other UFO researchers are using his work and theories as possible answers for UFOs. But Jeff Woolwine was the first to bring this topic and prove it's true to the UFO community. And I know how that feels. To be ignored when you're the one who's groundbreaking with information. So once again, I want to thank you so much, and please welcome Jeff to the show this evening. Good evening, Jeff Woolwine.
Hey, good evening. Thanks again for having me on.
It's my pleasure. I always love having you on my show. You're fabulous, and excellent researcher, excellent information, of course, and you are the one who was there. You were the path cutter for this whole data stream of information.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, and tell everybody about Petroglyphs in the Sky briefly, just to give them an idea. For those who haven't even looked at the book yet, I know it's on Amazon. Is there any other location it's available?
Let's see. It's on Amazon. It's on eBay. You can get it on the ebooks. And I think Barnes & Noble still carries it. Last time I saw it was out of stock, but I was told that they were restocking it. And so pretty much any place that, online books are sold. So, yeah.
It's a great read. I encourage everybody to purchase a copy. I mean, that's a real history insofar as where you come from with the petroglyphs and your decoding of that information, which I think is very, very interesting.
Yeah, thank you. It really got me started in this. I was a native here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was born and raised there in Phoenix. And, as a kid, I was always seeing these orbs and these lights in the sky, and I can remember playing catch football with my dad, like in the 5th grade, and there'd be like this white orb in the sky, or we'd see some lights out there in the sky, and I'd go the next day. I'd go to my school and had a little friend of mine. He was like a little Indian boy, and I'm like, dude, did you see that light last night? And he goes, yeah, well, my grandfather says that those lights live in those mountains over there. And he points over there to the west side of the valley, now known as the White Tank Mountains. And, at the time you're a kid and you're just kind of blowing things off, blah, blah. But as time progresses, and you're really starting to think about all this stuff and you're seeing them everywhere you go, it's about time you figure out what the hell was going on in the skies. And so that's basically what I did in 2004. I really set on a quest to find out what was going on. I was always researching these things. I loved archaeology. I've been studying archaeology for a number of years. I mean, I can spot something man-made a mile away, and somebody would just walk right past it, I can say, no, dude, that's something here, And I'm really good at that. And, so it all clicked, in 2004 and 2005 when my research really started to come into play. And, I soon realized that there was petroglyphs out here on the mountains around Phoenix, Arizona. And I believe my mother, who has passed now, was talking about, she loved the Indians. She loved the Indian culture. It's one of the reasons why she moved here to Arizona from Oklahoma, because she loved the landscape and the Native American story behind it all. So she was really into the Native Americans, loved the paintings, loved the arts. We had a few Native Americans that used to come over to our house, and he used to actually teach me how to draw some kachinas and things like that. So I've always had this, in my blood, in my background, And then first I figured out that there's petroglyphs on this mountain out here. I was watching the television in the beginning of 2004, right before the summer hit. And there was a Native American shaman up there who actually worked for the Pueblo Indian Art Museum in downtown Phoenix. And he was doing a tour, and he was talking about the petroglyphs. And one of the people that was with him, he was like, well, that stick figure man is kind of looking up at, something in the sky, And Dave, that's his name, Dave Morris, he turned around and said, yes. That's part of the interpretations out here, is that our ancestors saw and recorded things in the sky. Well, I'm like, wait a minute, dude, because we just had the, March 13th, 1997 lights, and before then we had mass sightings, and then after that we continue to this day have these sightings. I mean, March 13th was nothing. There was lights prior, many years before that. And, it just so happened that the March 13th got noticed because of it. And, and from there, there's other lights in the sky. So I'm like, wait a minute. We have strange lights in the sky. Now we have strange carvings out here in the mountains. There's got to be a connection, So a few months later, I contacted Dave, and I'm like, dude, I really didn't tell him who I was, what I was doing. I asked him if I could film him, told him I was making a documentary on the petroglyphs, And I said, hey, I saw you on Channel 8. You think you could take me up there on the mountain and talk about petroglyphs? So we met up there, and we spent a couple hours up on the mountain, and he was telling me some crazy things, man, because at the time, March 13th, 1997, and everyone's talking about this craft, all right? There's no evidence of this craft, no proof of a craft going over Phoenix, Arizona, but that's what the story was. That was the myth, that was what everybody was saying, because they just didn't understand it. It was one bad information to another bad information, and then finally we got this huge, massive craft going over the valley, which nobody can prove to this day, and we'll get into that later if you like.
Oh, yeah.
So he was telling me, he was talking about the spirals and how they're doorways, for the underworld. Now, he wasn't saying spaceships. He wasn't saying crafts. He wasn't saying nuts and bolts. He's talking about spirits, man. He's talking about spirits of the earth and the sky. He's telling me that these spirals are doorways. They're doorways to the underworld for these spirits to come and go. He was telling me, that crack in the rock, that there's a spiral, and it was going clockwise, which means the door is going in. And he says that when it ends down like at a crack, he's telling me that's the doorway. That is the emergence point to the underworld. Now, if the spiral is ending up, then there's a vortex. There's a door in the sky there. That's when we're talking about the Phoenix lights, how they just magically appear in the sky, and other forms of light that we see up there, these lights in the skies and things like that, because there's an energy door. We'll get into that later. I'm going too far ahead. But there's a door up there. And so if the spirals are clockwise, there's a doorway in. If a spiral is counterclockwise, it's a doorway out. And he's all telling me about these, cracks. That's the entrance point. And I'm like, dude, how can a spaceship a nuts and bolts craft get into a little crack like that? It's virtually impossible, right? Because I'm still thinking Alpha Centauri, little gray men from Mars, spaceships, technology. And, I'm not really understanding it yet. Well, we went on from there, and we were talking about the giants, and there was evidence of giants here in the Valley of the Sun. And we can see the petroglyphs of the giants, and then we can actually see some of the evidence of the giants. As a matter of fact, he was telling me about the Superstition Mountain. Now, a lot of people think that, the Superstition Mountain, that's where the Lost Dutchman's gold mine comes into play, because, this German-Dutch guy came over there and he found a bunch of gold, and then he died and never told people where it was. So it's been like almost 100 years now, and people are still looking for that Lost Dutchman's gold mine. But actually, to the natives, that Superstition Mountain goes a little bit deeper than a German guy with his lost gold. We're talking about the giants here. We're talking about the days of Noah, the days of the flood. And when the giants were walking around in the Valley of the Sun, the flood was coming, And so the lead giant didn't want his people to drown. So he told his people to run up on this boulder. And he moved that boulder, he used his power to move that boulder up, but the water kept coming. He used his power again to raise that boulder up, but the water kept coming. He did this so much, this boulder turned into a huge mountain, but the water kept coming. And at his last bit of strength, because he didn't want his people to drown, he immortalized them and by turning them all to stone. And when he did that, that's when the water stopped. And to this day, you can look up on the Superstition Mountains and you can see the water line up there and where the flood of the water had stopped. And up on top there, you can still see the giant turned to stone to this day. And on the left, on the north side of the mountain, you can see the lead giant, and he's kind of praying. He's like in this praying formation. And so, yeah, that mountain goes way back than the Lost Dutchman gold mine there, because we're talking about the giants, we're talking about the flood. Mm-hmm. And so, he's telling me a bunch of crazy things, because there's a lot of petroglyphs out there, and it's talking about, and it's depicting what we would consider are lizard people. Now, he's telling us, when the first Native Americans arrived here in this land, they didn't know how to live. So these lizard people came up out of the sand world, and they came down from the heavens, and they lost their tails to look like everyone else, and they taught these people how to survive. Matter of fact, there's a lot of legends in these Indian folklores and legends and things, especially when it comes to the Hopis, because the Hopis say that they learned how to weave their baskets by watching Spider-Woman's web in the sky. And so this is how they're able to weave their basket. So there's a lot of information, a lot of history with mankind in the early days of interacting with these beings in the sky, not spaceships, not crafts, but these entities, these beings in the sky. Mm-hmm. And so it's been all recorded down. It's been all recorded. And, they didn't have video cameras back then. They had stone boulders to record their sightings at. And that's exactly what's going on here. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why we find some petroglyphs in some areas and no petroglyphs in the other areas. It's because nothing happened out there. The places that have the petroglyphs located at is the spot, is the sacred ground, is the area where this event took place at. Because when you look at the petroglyphs, you're not just supposed to look at the art, but you're supposed to examine the whole landscape in itself. For instance, if you have like a snake and he's like the formation of two triangles or whatnot, or two pyramids, you want to step back from that boulder and look at the mountains behind that boulder, and you'll see that that snake is actually representing the boulders that's behind, the mountain peaks that's behind that boulder there. So the art is including the landscape in with the art. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how to understand these petroglyphs. So we were talking about a lot of things, and and then we get off the mountain, and he goes, I bring up the subject. I was like, "Are you familiar with the Phoenix Lights?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, And he goes, "There's a guy on the news back then. This was in 2005, 2005, he was like, and since then, I've been on the news. I was watching these lights, in 2004, the whole summer of 2004. And so I'm catching these lights on the east side of South Mountain over this major spot. We'll talk about that later probably. And so he goes, yeah, there was a guy on the news, talking about that. And I was like, yeah, dude, that was me. He goes, that was you? And I said, yeah. I said, I have this theory. I said, I'm working on this theory that these rock arts out here is talking about what we're seeing in the skies today. Boy, I tell you what, boy, he just kind of shut up after that. He looked at me, and oh my God, dude, that was it. That was it. Yeah, I'm glad that I didn't tell him, what I was doing before he actually taught me all this stuff, because a lot of Native Americans here who understand what's going on with this, who understand the history, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that during the show. Understand, what these Phoenix lights really are. Understand what these things that we see in the skies are. Understand how their ancestors, interacted with these beings and what happened to them. And for me, for me, coming around and discovering all this secret taboo stuff, man, it was not right, man, because to be honest with you, we're really not supposed to know about these things in the sky. We're not supposed to know. That's why it's been covered up for all these years. That's why the government isn't talking about these things, because of their past, of their history. What happened to everybody back then, we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, and so to this day, I tried calling him up, trying to get back on the mountain with me now. He won't go. There's a lot of superstition going on here. And it's all good. It's all, I understand I totally understand now, because, back then I really didn't, because he's telling me doors and spirits, right? And stuff that to me at the time, in my belief, just couldn't be possible, because we're still thinking nuts and bolts and spaceships and crafts and technology and little gray guys running around, right? That's what we're thinking. So when you say that this little crack over here or this hole in a stone where the spiral is pointing at is a doorway for these things, you're like, dude, that's impossible, right? It's crazy, right? Until 2005. Because in 2004, right, I was watching these lights on the east side of South Mountain almost every night of the summer in 2004. And they were hanging over a major spot, a major area on the east side of South Mountain. And what this area consisted of was a major power plant. It's a power plant that bore down into the fault lines of the mountain, because South Mountain was created by a fault line. It generates energy, right? So that's what these things were right over. These things were absorbing the energy from the power plant on the east side of South Mountain. Now, doing more investigations on this, come to find out, I found an old map when the first pilgrims arrived here in Phoenix. I found an old map in the library, in the Phoenix Library, and they documented all the Holocauns, canals, and all the structures and buildings and pueblos that they had. And it just so happened to be that in that area where this power plant sits today was the heart of the Holocauns City. That's where everybody was living at the time, on the east side. The east side is very significant, very holy. It's where the sun rises in the mornings on the east. It's the beginning of the day, it's the beginning of life, okay? And that's exactly what's going on here. So east side to the Native Americans is very holy. East is holy. It's sacred. And that's where everybody was hanging out at, right there at this energy spot. So that's telling me that these lights were hanging around that area way back there in the day, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, probably since the beginning of time. When these things first came here to Earth, they've always been drawn to this area of South Mountain, Phoenix, because it's a holy mountain. The South Mountain is a holy mountain. It's a place of worship. It's a place that all the tribes from around the nation used to gather at through the changing of the seasons to watch these lights in the skies, to watch the Phoenix lights. Matter of fact, South Mountain wasn't the name back then. It was called Mount Sepoa, Mountain of Mercy. All right, just like the Mayans, when we find the sacrificing at altars out there, and them sacrificing to the spirits of the sky and their gods and things. Exactly the same thing that's going on here. I found evidence of the altars out here on South Mountain, east side. It's oriented towards the east, sacrificing ritual. Matter of fact, it's right there next to a dried up little canal bank there, dried up little canal, like little riverbed, because they would watch first to purify the sacrifice, and then they would sacrifice them there to these lights, to these Phoenix lights in the sky.
Wow. So the sacrifice, let me just ask you something real quick. So the sacrificing, was that insofar as out of respect to these entities, or why did they do the sacrifice?
Well, I was doing a lot of research. That's a good question. I was doing a lot of research on, the history of Phoenix, Arizona. Now, the archaeologists, they want us to believe, well, the Hohokams was a peace-loving race out here who ruled Phoenix, Arizona, who ruled the desert for, a good, 1,700 years almost, and they were there, and then all of a sudden they vanished. They were there 1,000 years, and now they're gone, and with no trace. The archaeologists want us to believe, well, it got too hot here, so they migrated somewhere else, right? That's the story. Mm-hmm. But yet there's no evidence on where they went. All right, there's no evidence. We would find traces of where they went. They were here one day and gone the next. Now, this is the same kind of situation that we find on tribes all over the world, where they were rulers of their land for 1,000 years, maybe longer, and then all of a sudden they simply vanished. It was the same time period of when that tribe over there on the other side of the world disappeared, and this tribe over here on this side of the world disappeared. It all happened at the same time, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. And, looking into this really hard, for a whole year, right? I'm doing news reports, I'm doing cable shows, I'm doing radio shows, and I'm telling them, look, you know what I'm finding out here, guys? I'm an amateur archaeologist, and if I can find this stuff, I know the archaeologist has found this stuff. Now, how come he's not talking about this in his books? Because I bought his books, and I read his books, about South Mountain and the Hohokams and the Petroglyphs and stuff. But he was leaving a lot of stuff out, man. He was leaving out, what about the tombs that are out there? What's up with that? There are tombs out there, right? And the altars, doesn't talk about the altars. And what about the Mayan art that I'm finding out there? It doesn't talk about the Mayans. So here's for a year, right? I'm going out there and I'm like, look at the photographs. I'm going out there on the mountains. I'm exploring the South Mountain, I lived there, for 2.5, almost 3 years. I watched that mountain on the east side. I'm climbing it almost every day. I'm getting to know the landscape. I'm getting to know Arizona's history, and I'm bringing back all these photographs. I'm bringing back all this information. Something that the public hasn't been aware of all these years. I'm bringing back this whole different story here. Because when going into this, I'm walking down this one path, okay? But all the evidence, all the proof is leading me down another path. It's leading me down another road. I started off going east, and now all of a sudden I'm going west, dude. Something is going on here that the truth is making me go in this direction. Because I'm finding all this evidence, and there's proof out there. I can take you to it to this day. And if you can't get out there, I bring the photographs to you. This is what's here. And so I'm digging up all this information. I'm doing all these radio shows and cable shows. And all I have, because the archaeologists, I was on the news with the archaeologists in 2005. I probably was the only person in history to bring out a city archaeologist talking about UFOs and petroglyphs ever. I don't think anybody else has ever done that before. And he was blowing such smoke up people's butts, dude, it made me sick. He was totally off the wall, dude. He was like, oh, well, people think that flying saucers and things like this and little gray man and the Hohokam saw this. And I'm like, dude, what the hell are you talking about, man? Look at the evidence here. So, but going through all this, I understand why they're not talking about it. It's hush taboo. It's not information that the public really should be aware of. And, how like I said before, I'm finding all this evidence, so I decided to dig a little harder, okay, so I've been out in the field, for over a year now. I found the evidence. There's got to be something. And I'm thinking to myself, there has to be other stuff that I'm overlooking here. There's got to be proof here. Somebody knows something, because it's here. They want you to stay on the trails because when you go off the trails, that's where the history lies. That's where the information is. And they don't want you to get off the trails. They want you to stay on the trails and just, keep your nose out of the business and just walk on past the petroglyphs and don't even pay attention, to the tombs and to the altar and actually what happened to these people, blah, blah, blah. They want you to look at that. Just stay on the trails, keep your nose down, enjoy the view, blah, blah, and then have a merry day. No. No, get off the trails, explore, find out the truth. That's exactly what I did. And so I'm finding this evidence, and it brought me, I was like, okay, there's got to be more information, in the library, So I went down to the Phoenix library in downtown, and I went up to the Arizona room. That's where, like, some government files are, things like that, the history of Phoenix, Arizona, it's got a lot of stuff there. So I asked the secretary, just give me everything you have on South Mountain. So she comes out with this folder, right? And this folder is like 5 inches thick, right? And so I open it up, and boom! Oh my God! It hits me like a truck, dude. There is all the proof that I've been wanting to find out, man. It's right there in this folder. Oh my God! We're talking about the first park ranger of South Mountain, of Phoenix, Arizona, right? In the 1930s, right? His name was Charles Holbrook. And he was the first park ranger. And the Native Americans at that time, they trusted Charles. They told Charles exactly who the Hohokam was, where they went, how they left, what they were here to do, what was the whole purpose of the landscape here, what was going on here, and he talked about the Mayans being here, right? And he talked about the gold. Talking about the gold in the tombs that's still left there today, right? I'm like, oh my God, dude, I struck it. This is it. Everything that I was talking about that I discovered a year and a half prior has been in this tucked away folder for the last 80 years, away from the public eye, and lo and behold, look, this is it. This is all the information I needed. I was right. I knew I was right, man. I got these critics coming up, oh, dude, you're filming balloons, man, and you're filming flares, man, and there's no lizard people out there, and these rock art's not talking about UFOs, man. What are you, crazy, boy? They were kicking me around. The critics were kicking me around pretty good. It was horrible, but I knew that I discovered something. I knew that I was right. This was new information. Of course they're not going to accept this. Because why? Because they have been misleaded on things, from at least for the past 50 to 60 years, dude, on stuff of people, like, writing books and selling movies just to make a dollar, dude, just to get famous, just to get on the news, just to make a movie, dude. So they're not doing their homework as I've done. They're not going out on the field, going out there on the mountains, exploring the history, exploring the petroglyphs, finding all this information for themselves. They're just taking the word from somebody who's never done this information before, but is selling books, trying to make money, and get fame off something that they can't even prove. Because, I'm sorry, I don't go on hearsay. I go what I can prove, what I can, what is documented, what is credible evidence. Because hearsay is hearsay, and you can't prove hearsay. You have to have evidence of backing you up. So if you say something went over Phoenix, Arizona in 1997, March 13th, the size of 2 miles in a boomerang craft that went 8 miles an hour, and nobody can pick up a camera, oh my God, dude, really? Really? I mean, here we have, what happened, these lights on the west side of Phoenix, Arizona, right? March 13th, 1997. Let's go back there. and these lights are popping up, right? And who's filming it? Who's filming them?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
are you there?
Two guys are filming it.
Okay.
Tom King, he's on the west side. Now I remember seeing Tom King way before 2004, and he's making the news on the east side of South Mountain. He's watching these lights and things. So I saw him on the news, and I knew that was where to go to watch these lights. But over here on the west side, he was there filming these lights on the west side. And why? Why was he there? He's a sky watcher. He was a known sky watcher at that time because he was seeing lights weeks and days or weeks and nights before March 13th. So he was ready. He was ready for these lights to happen again. And then we have somebody on the east side, and that's the most famous sighting that you see today. That's the most recognizable video is where you see these lights and you see the mountains there. And what are they doing? They're making an arc, right? They're not in the V shape. Are they moving? No. Are they going across the city? No. What are they doing? They are connecting themselves between the west side of South Mountain and to the other mountain called the Australia Mountain, which is on the Indian Reservation, known as Star Mountain. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, they blink out, disappear, blah, blah. So what can we verify of that? What can we verify? And that was it. Okay, that was really it. That's what is so famous today. March 13, 1997 is what Tom King filmed, and a guy that his name escapes me filmed over there on the east side of South Mountain, the famous one. And so my point is, if anything was going to fly over the valley, then sure, Tom King would have got it. Because he was out there waiting for it, right? Mm-hmm. He was out there waiting for something to happen, right? He just didn't film the lights and then go back in his house. No, he stayed out there all night, man. He was waiting for more stuff to happen. So if anything going over the city of Phoenix going 8 miles an hour, as some people claim, then surely somebody could have filmed it. If a handful of people can film lights on the far west of the valley, then why couldn't a handful of people film a craft, a spaceship, going over the whole Arizona state? Mm-hmm. This makes no sense. This makes no sense. And it's been over 20 years. I've been still looking for this evidence, and not one possible photo, video, anything has come into play. I mean, it went from, 700 people was a witness to 1,500 people was a witness to 2,000 people was a witness to 5,000 people was a witness to everybody in Phoenix saw the lights. Oh, my God, dude. You know how high school plays? Little Jeremy, he broke his foot falling off the swing set. And then by the time it goes around the whole school, oh, my God, he's been shot. He's almost dying. Oh, my God. I mean, you can see how things just seem to escalate. And someone pushing this nonsense, selling books about nothing, selling movie tickets about nothing, right? No evidence, okay, on hearsay. That just pisses me off. I'm sorry. But if you're going to make a fantastic claim about this, then you better have some proof. You better have the evidence backing you up. That's all I got to say.
No, I think you're right.
And yet, I'm not going to say any names, but we all know who we're talking about, but that's the problem here. We have people making money, trying to be famous. We have these amateurs out there that are just taking hearsay and spreading gossip and misleading the public. So when the truth really comes around, like what I done, they totally dismiss it. Oh, no, those are flares because we're looking for spaceships, man. We're looking for craft, dude. Mm-hmm. But yet all the evidence has been on the rocks. All the evidence, all the literature has been in the Phoenix Library all these years. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sorry if this other person who saw movie tickets and books about nothing, I'm sorry she didn't come up with it first. But dude, she had 10 years before I came around. She had 10 years before I made it known that the Petroglyphs were out there on the mountains and is talking about the Phoenix lights. No one has ever done that before. No one has ever made that connection before. So this person had 10 years before me. She was in the public eye 10 years, okay? And then all of a sudden now I come around and, oh, my God, I have this new theory, this new concept on the Phoenix Light. Oh, my God, the news media and all the cable shows and UFO Magazine and the History Channel. Boy, they're turning their cameras towards me, and it's upsetting a lot of other skywatchers. You know, but I'm sorry, dude. You guys had 10 years to figure this out.
And they're so
and
competitive.
It took me, what, 2 years? You know, come on, you guys. I'm sorry, dude. You know, but the problem is, now it sucks, too, because, I mean, in this type of, like, investigations, if you will, you know, like UFO stuff, you know, there is a lot of politics involved. If someone doesn't like you, then you're out. You're done. You know, if someone starts talking crap about you, that's it. You're done. You know, oh, this person up here, he's more credible because he has no proof. You know, and he's been doing this a lot longer than you have. Even though he's talking about hearsay, he's still talking bad about you, so it must be true, right? And that's what happened. And plus, I wasn't going along with what everybody else was saying. What because why? I started going down this one road, right? And then all of a sudden, the information, the proof, the evidence is taking me down another road. And so I'm bringing this information to all these people, and they're not accepting it, dude. They're not taking it. They don't want to read it. They don't want to look at it. It's not spaceships. It's not crap going over Phoenix, Arizona. So you're wrong, dude. You're wrong. And I'm like, but look at the evidence. Look at the proof I'm digging up.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about
what did they say
this.
it was, actually? Were they trying to say that it was a black triangle?
Well, they're just trying to say an arc. You know, oh, my God, there's so many. Oh, I'm sorry, a V-shape. A V-shaped craft went over Phoenix. And, you know, he asked, well, there was photographs of it, but it was so large that it just blocked out the photographs. Okay, let's see the photographs. Well, I don't have those photographs anymore. You know, because you can't see anything. You know, they're saying this V-shaped craft went over the whole Arizona. You know, went over Phoenix, but you know, there's no proof of this. I've been waiting. I've been looking. I mean, oh my God, I've been doing so many interviews. My stuff's gone global, and I keep asking the same questions. Hey, do you have credible photographs of anything going over Phoenix? No one's contacted me yet, dude, because there is none. There is none. There's hearsay. It's hearsay of someone non-credible trying to make money off these lights, fooling the public, and making fools out of all of us, saying a craft went over Phoenix when there's no evidence. Matter of fact, that person never saw anything go over Phoenix either. She's going off hearsay. It's all hearsay. It started with hearsay. It's ending with hearsay. And I think we need to kick hearsay out the door and look at the evidence. And what does the evidence say?
Right.
Here
and
is
let me
what
ask you something
the
real
proof
quick.
lies.
And what about all these like pictures that, you know, if you Google, obviously you'll see all kinds of stuff on this, right? As far as their version of photographs, but what do you see when you look at those things?
Let me take it real quick.
I don't want to make you Google or anything, but I was just curious. You know, it does look kind of, it definitely doesn't look like any type of ship to me. And if these are even legitimate pictures, and I question that, because nowadays everything on Google has been sanitized and you know, so much CGI. I mean, it's all been played with.
Yeah. Right. You know, my wife Pam was always, you know, sending me photographs from other people. You know, oh, look at that blue light there. Oh, well, it's a photograph. You know, it could be some kind of spotlight or something, you know. We can't go on. It's sad. It's sad because of all these hoaxes out here, you know, and that's what's really contaminating the truth is all these people out there trying to make money, trying to get famous off bogus photographs and bogus video, you know. And what's going on here? And what's really going on? It's people that have opened up a YouTube channel, right? And they're making money off this. So every time you click on that video that looks like a spaceship, looks like a craft, you're paying that guy. So you're paying him to fool you, right? Because all these videos, all these photographs of these crafts and the little gray guys, it's hoax. It's hoax stuff. There's not one credible evidence of a spaceship, of crafts, or any of that. There's nothing. I've been looking at this stuff for years, and you're gonna have to look at the agenda of these people, who are saying this stuff. What do they have to gain? Oh, okay. They have an account. They're making money. Oh, they're selling a book. They're making money. Oh, and by the way, I don't make any money from my book. I told the publishers to give my book to the foster kids in Phoenix, so I'm not making a dime. Okay, I don't make a dime off what I've been doing. I've been doing this for like 20 years now almost, okay? And I'm not making any money from this. I'm bringing this information to the public. I want you to look at what I've discovered, and just don't take my word for it. Investigate this stuff for yourself, right? Stop being so damn ignorant, man, and do this stuff on your own. Look about what's going on in our world. And that's exactly what I did. Like I said before, I was going down one road because that's what everybody was telling me, but the evidence was going down a different road. And so let's talk about this evidence. So remember, I'm talking about the gold. I'm talking about the altars out there. You asked me about the sacrifice, but I'm sorry I got off topic.
No, you're good. You're good.
We'll get to that. Because I get ahead of myself.
You're on a roll.
There's so
Go
much
ahead.
information. There's so much information. It's 20 years of stuff, and
a lot of knowledge.
I'm finding.
You have a lot of knowledge, and you know that. That's excellent. Go ahead.
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, it's all from just hard work. It's doing this research, and not taking the word of somebody else, but actually going out there and investigating these things for myself. So while I'm out there, I'm finding, art left by the Mayans. Okay, I'm finding tombs. I'm finding altars. I'm finding I'm finding evidence of giants. I'm finding petroglyphs of giants. So everything the archaeologist is trying to, mislead us in his books, the facts, the evidence on the mountains is telling us a different story. Until I went to the Phoenix Library. And here I opened up, and there it was. It was Charles Holbrook from the 1930s. Now, he was a big name back then, actually. I mean, Charles just wasn't here in Phoenix. I mean, actually, the whole West Coast, his information is like in some of these locked up files throughout the nations, man. I come to find out that Charles was a badass dude. I mean, Charles was a short guy, and he was packing 2 6-shooters. But I tell you what, when he spoke, people listened, man. And to this day, his word and his research is still honored today by serious archaeologists. So serious that they don't talk about his work because it's so, I'm not going to say controversial, but it's so facts. It tells us a different story of the history of Phoenix and the history of the west side of United States. It completely tells us something completely different. So after his death, they buried this information. And so he actually wrote this little article. He wrote a piece, and you can find this on my website. I think it used to be petroglyphsfromthesky.net, but you can find it on my Facebook page, Jeff Woolwine, Petroglyphs from the Sky. There's not a link, but a way to get to my website. Matter of fact, my new YouTube channel, you can find my website there also.
Excellent.
And,
what's the name of your YouTube channel?
It is the Phoenix Lights, Petroglyphs in the Sky.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, and so every video, that's my new YouTube channel. So every video I post on there, I have a link to my website, a link to the book, and things like that. So the website has this document, this brochure, because Charles Holbrook, he did tours on South Mountain also. I do tours. He does tours also, and he actually passed out this flyer, and it talked about the history. It talked about the history of Phoenix, Arizona. And so all this information I dug up from the folder. So everything I'm about to tell you now, I learned from Charles Holbrook. Charles Holbrook taught me this. He died in the 1940s, but 80 years later, he's teaching me this stuff because I'm finding his evidence out there, and I'm bringing this to you. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing this to everybody who wants to listen about the real history of Phoenix. This is not hearsay. This is documentation. This is proof, fact. This is in the Phoenix Library today. And what does the Phoenix Library and Charles Holbrook say about the holocom? Let's investigate the holocom. What does holocom mean? Holocom is a Pima name for the people who are gone, the people who are missing, or the people who got taken away. Because we do not know what happened to these people. Like I said before, they ruled here for 1,000+ years, and one day they disappeared, gone. But during that 1,000+ years, man, they ruled this area. They were the masters of the canal system. I mean, there was no evidence of war, but there was a lot of other tribes from around the nations used to come to this mountain. Charles Holbrook explained that it was a handful of corn for a handful of gold, right? And they'd melt this gold into idols, right? Much like what we're seeing in Mexico, in the Mayans. Mayans idols and things like that, gold idols, you know. And so it's a Pima word for the people who are missing, the people who are gone. Now, the archaeologists say that they just migrated somewhere else. Got too hot, they migrated somewhere else, but we can't find them. Right? But the oral tradition, when I talk to a lot of the natives around here who will talk to me about this, because a lot of them won't. And I just talked about that earlier when I'm trying to talk to Dave. You know, he won't talk to me no more. It's very hard to get this information out because this is so taboo and this is scary stuff. But some of the natives say that the devil came from the east and took these people away. Now, this coincides with what the rock art is depicting. The rock art is talking about these orbs, right? These Phoenix lights, not a spaceship, but these lights, these orbs, these lights in the sky that we see, these flying serpents, Quetzalcoatl, Mexico stuff, man. I'm telling you, it's here. I have filmed the flying serpent many times here in Phoenix, Arizona. I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, he is alive and well in Phoenix, Arizona, and probably in your state also. You need to look out for him because these flying snakes are real. Uh-oh, am I saying spaceships? No. I'm saying entities. I'm saying living entities, living creatures, man. Mm-hmm. That is what's in our skies today. And so they say that these things came from the east and took these people away. Why? Well, like I said before, so there was a lot of sacrificing going on here. And they were sacrificing the young. They were sacrificing their so-called enemies of war. They brought up children to be specifically sacrificed to these entities, to these Phoenix lights, to these things we see in the skies today. They didn't worship, they didn't treat the sun as, they didn't really worship the sun, but they felt that he was a tyrant god. But these things in the sky, these things that came up out of the sand world, these things that came down from the heavens, were their gods. And what were they doing? They were shape-shifting. The Native Americans like to say that these things shape-shift, right? That's what they're doing, dude. They're shape-shifting into lights. They're from the lights. They're doing snakes. They're doing stick figures, men, you know. They're looking like men. They're looking like animals, coyotes, sheep. I mean, weird stuff, right? Weird things. Not spaceships, but weird-looking stuff, man. They're shape-shifting. They're changing colors, dude. They're alive, man. They know who's watching. They know who's not. That's how they're getting away with being out of the skies, because no one's paying attention. And when they do, they mistake it for, that's got to be a balloon. Oh, that's got to be a flare. Why? Because they have been led to believe that they're looking for spaceships. So when they really see something in the sky, they just blow it off, man. They think it's a balloon. But it's not acting like a balloon. It's changing. It's shape-shifting. It's changing color, right? It's not drifting up. It's not drifting down. There's no wind. But yeah, there it is, dude. You know? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's got to be a balloon. It has to be. Because it's not a spaceship, right?
Do these things cloak, right? Jeff? I mean, have you noticed them cloaking? Any of these entities? Oh. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. You know, I like it's weird too, because like that's a good question. Like, so there would be like an orb in the sky, right? And you're standing here. You're standing and you're looking up and you see the orb. But someone who's standing 10 feet away from you can't see it, right? They're looking, but they can't see it. But as soon as they get where you're standing at, they see it, right? So maybe it is a type of clone or not cloning, but like camouflage or some kind of, you know, I mean, look at some of these geckos, right? I mean, they change their skin to look like, you know, the trees or the grass that they're in or the dirt that they're in, right? So they're cloaking, right? They look invisible, but they're there. But, you know, their skin, if you will, is just making them appear like not to be there, right? You know. So that's a good question, yeah. You know, and so let me get back to my story.
Okay.
And so this went on for 1,000 years, right? And there was sacrificing going on, and until one day, for reasons unknown, Charles Holbrook says in his journal, the sacrificing stopped. And when that did, boy, it upsetted these spirits. You know, looking back at history and looking at the evidence in Phoenix, Arizona, it wasn't all dried up like this. It wasn't a desert. When the Hurricanes were here, when the mines were here, it was a tropical-like landscape. We can see the evidence of the massive, beautiful waterfalls coming down the mountains of South Mountain, coming down the mountains of the White Tank Mountain, coming down the mountains from the Australia Mountains. You know, all over the valley, there was plenty of water here. It was not all dried up in the way it is now, you know. But after this sacrificing stopped, the legends say, the stories say, is that's when things started to dry up. That's when it upset the spirits. It upset these Phoenix lights. It upset these entities, a.k.a. UFOs, to us. And it went dry. Everything, the water was drying up. Everything was going drought, right? And the people were screaming at their leaders, why did you stop the sacrifice? You have upsetted the gods. You knew you shouldn't have stopped this sacrifice. We needed the blood to pour down the rocks so the sun would continue to go in the season and supply us with everything we need. That's what these spirits demanded. These are our gods. They wanted they needed blood going down the sacrificial rocks. Why have you stopped? Now look at our land. It is all dry. It's all dried up. There's no water here. And as soon as that happened, as soon as everyone realized this, boom, that's when these lights came down. That's when these serpents came down. That's when these orbs came down and started picking people up by their heads. Now, this is verifiable in the petroglyphs. There's a lot of petroglyphs out there where the serpents, the flying serpents, the Quetzalcoatl, the flying orbs, the Phoenix lights are picking people up by their heads, and they're using some kind of line. When you look at you can look on my website right there on the front page. You can see an orb, and this line is coming down, and it's picking this guy up, and he's taking him off into the sky. And this terrified the people.
Yeah, hang on for just a second. We're going to hit a break here. Everybody listen to Raven Star's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. Our wonderful guest tonight is Jeff Woolwine. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.